Swiss Skydiver, and she's opened up on the field here. It's Gamine dominating this field, and Swiss Skydiver is sailing home here. Gamine won by the length of the stretch.
Cortland Simmons with you here at the CS Racing Report, and this is the Kentucky Oaks Early Preview Podcast. Before we get into that, program reminder, Fantastic Fillies Volume 2 is available. Check that out at YouTube. Hopefully you'll enjoy that. Volume 3 is on the way. Meantime, back to the Oaks. This is, by all accounts, considered to be a monster matchup between Swiss Skydiver for trainer Kenny McPeak against Bob Baffert's Gamine. But, of course, there's also a third wheel in the cog in Speech, who was very impressive in the Ashland Stakes. As you look at the leaderboard for the Kentucky Oaks, along with the probables that are going to probably enter the gate in this edition of the Classic run the day before the Kentucky Derby. There probably won't be a 14-horse field, but it won't be as small as the field that Rachel Alexandra crushed in 2009 by 20-plus lengths. And when looking at these horses, the top horses, in looking at Swiss Skydiver, she's been very impressive since running third in the Rachel Alexandra Stakes, the aforementioned champion in that stake race at the Fairgrounds, running third. She then went on to win the Fantasy Stakes, shipped out to the West Coast, to the left coast, to win the Santa Anita Oaks, defeating Speech there, and then came back, ran very, very well in the Bluegrass Stakes. On the same day, Speech set a stakes and track record in the Ashland, a race that Swiss Skydiver could have run in. She was second to Art Collector, one of the favorites for the Kentucky Derby in the Bluegrass, then shipped out to New York for the Alabama at the Derby distance of 1.25 miles, and won that race very, very impressively, wrapped up in the final 200 yards or so, or maybe even further than that, by her rider. And she was very, very solid in winning that race and setting herself up for a big run in this Kentucky Oaks. Again, there's one question that we're going to ask not only of her, but a couple of horses funneling into the Oaks out of the Alabama Stakes. But she's been very, very impressive. And when you compare it to Gamine, of course, was just absolutely devastating in winning the Acorn in record-setting time of 132.25 in the old standard time, 132.55 in 21st century digital time. Very impressive performance in winning by 18-plus lengths. Then she shipped to Saratoga to win the 7-furlong test stakes at a furlong shorter in 120.83 in sparkling time in a race in which, like Swiss Skydiver, she was geared down. Very, very impressive. Meantime, Speech, of course, earlier in this summer of 2020, with this reconfigured schedule of classic races, was impressive in winning the Ashland after losing the Santa Anita Oaks in 141.26. That time, of course, was a little faster, a shade faster than Swiss Skydiver's performance when defeating the field in the Fantasy at Oaklawn of 142 flat. That was a race in which one of two Brad Cox trainees, She Dares the Devil, was well beaten. She was more than 10-plus lengths back in third. She has since won the Indiana Oaks She Dares the Devil to give Cox the Indiana Oaks Derby double. And the question on her is going to be, once she kicked clear in the Indiana Oaks, she ran very, very nicely to get that lead and widen the gap and separate herself. But the problem was she did kind of, float around in the stretch. According to her trainer and rider, they thought she got a little distracted. I think there was a little bit of a hybrid, a combination of her maybe getting a little distracted, but I think she maybe was getting a little tired. Her final time of 143.50, regardless of the quirks that you may think she has to smooth out, even if she is to do that, is it enough to be able to compete with arguably the top two and, of course, that third horse in Speech? Is she in the territory, in the area code, or is she a couple tiers below these fillies? And I think right now, most people are going to take the position that she is a couple decibels below the top three, but she's in the field, and this is where things get really interesting in terms of the storyline, and I'll tell you why. The reason being, this race is very there's many parallels to the 2020 edition and the 2017 running of the Kentucky Oaks. Why? Glad you asked. The reason is because in 2017, Paradise Woods, trained by Dick Mandela, was devastating, was just awesome in crushing the field in the Santa Anita Oaks, winning by 11-plus lengths, leaving Abel Tasman, trained by Bob Baffert, and the rest of the field in her wake. The Her performance, along with the horse whose name escapes me from New York, who was very impressive in winning by 15, they both came in as red-hot favorites, expected to be on the front end. Of course, obviously, when you have that, something has to give. There could be a suicidal speed duel. Well, it rained that day, and of course, that enhances the speed horse's performance or ability to dominate the race, minus the possibility of a speed duel. The pace was fast. Abel Tasman sat back, sat chilly under Mike Smith. She came with a big run, a tremendous run, about 3 furlongs out, and just mowed down and barreled over the top 2 favorites to, of course, register her breakout win, which launched a Grade 1 winning career and Eclipse Award debut for Abel Tasman. So who is the horse of 2020? Who's the 2020 version of Abel Tasman? And, of course, along with She Dares the Devil, Bonnie South, her stablemate, trained by Brad Cox, fits that mold. Since winning the Fairground Oaks, where she beat the early Oaks favorite Finite, trained by Steve Asmussen, she has not been as good. The Ashland Stakes, she got simply run out of her horseshoes in that race where she finished 4th. And in the Alabama against Swiss Skydiver, she got every bit of the 1.25 miles. Came on, made up inches, not yards, and belatedly coming on to finish 2nd. It was a good performance. I definitely think she proved she could run that far, but I believe that the 1.125 miles may suit her a little bit better in here, despite the fact there's going to be some quickness up front. That may actually be better for her, but again, she's going to have to show a little bit more early turn of foot to have any chance, if there is a pace meltdown, to be able to do what Abel Tasman did, no matter what the weather situation is on Oaks Day. That's going to be the key. But the setup is there, but the tactics, that's going to be the question on Bonnie South, because on paper, to me, it feels like the 1.25 miles might have been a touch too far. The 1.125 miles should suit her better, but you still have to tactically be sound in being able to run down these front runners. And so that's going to be a big question, along with another twofold set of, concerns, and that is she's coming in off 3 weeks rest along with Swiss Skydiver. That's going to be the question, whether Kenny McPeek's charge along with Brad Cox's entry, if she can come in off the 3 weeks and run effectively, or is that 3 weeks, is there some fatigue setting in? So as the late, great Penny Chinnery, the owner of the incomparable Secretariat, once said, horses these days don't run off 2 weeks rest. And in the 21st century, 3 weeks is considered to be too quick of a turnaround. But if you are talking, or if you ask Kenny McPeek, he's pretty confident that this filly is going to be able to turn it right around and run equally, if not better, equally as well or not better, if not better than she did at Saratoga. And I have a tendency to believe him, although I do think that will be a bit of a concern. Gamine is coming in with an extra week's rest, but, less experience, or actually no experience going anywhere near the distances that Swiss Skydiver and Speech have run, along with a couple of other fillies in here. So that's going to be very interesting. I expect, no matter what the post position, for Gamine to show speed, and this is going to be the question I think a lot of people out there, a lot of you are asking, is between her and Speech and Swiss Skydiver, is this the Rachel Alexander performance? Is it going to be a blowout? Or are we going to see something like Meadow Star and Light Light in the Mother Goose from way back, Light Light owned by rap icon MC Hammer? We're going to see a battle like that mirrored a Sunday Silence, Easy Goer, Alidar Firm kind of thing. That is going to be the question. These fillies have been fast this year. They seem to match up very, very well on paper. We're going to find out if this is going to be a matchup, a monster matchup between Gamine and Swiss Skydiver along with Speech. We're going to look at some picks and break down all the scenarios with another preview of this Kentucky Oaks right here at the CS Racing Report.